Are you prepared to have your mind blown by supposed facts about the Lord of the Rings that are actually false?
All right then, keep your secrets.
No, really. We'll tell you. Let's start by discussing the main topic of the Lord of the Rings. You know, the One Ring. When we first meet Bilbo Baggins and see him later on in the films, it looks like he's been through a lot, as if he's aged a couple of decades. The same thing happens as Frodo boards the ship for Grey Havens. You can see the wrinkles under his eyes, and it looks like his adventure added a few extra gray hairs. The implication is that the ring ages the people who use it. Well, that's not really the case. If you read the book, you'll know that there were several years, if not decades, between events that were accelerated for the movies. Otherwise, we need an extended edition of them. Heck, even the Cough Master himself, Gollum, was like 600 years old and had been without the ring for around 60 years. And that's a long time. Some people have grandchildren in that time span. But no, you can't blame the ring for Father Time being unforgiving to any of us here. While we're on the topic of the ring, let's address its other characteristic. It's supposed to be all persuasive and make you give in to its temptation. Like it's a chocolate chip sundae with sprinkles on top.
What about Elevensies?
No. Now, here's the thing. We did see how it corrupted the likes of Gollum, Bilbo, and even Frodo in phases, but its wily charms weren't as effective on other characters. Sam didn't give into it and handed it back to Frodo like it was a DVD he borrowed, while Aragorn heard its call and just closed Frodo's fist around it. Of course, this could lead to a discussion about the strength of the character's mindset. Perhaps Aragorn and Sam simply had more willpower, but if they were better suited to carry the ring, then why didn't they? Sounds like someone didn't think this one through. The reality is the ring wasn't as all-powerful and persuasive as it made itself out to be. Maybe it was just a chocolate sundae, but it lacked the sprinkles to make it truly irresistible. Speaking of eye-catching, let's not forget Sauron's flaming eyeball.
I see.
It's a pretty creepy and haunting visual that's become iconic in cinema, though it's not entirely accurate. You see, this was Peter Jackson's attempt at bringing a concept to life on the big screen. Because Sauron is supposed to be all-seeing and watching over the heroes, the director took it very literally and made him a giant eyeball in the sky. In JRR Tolkien's letters, it's confirmed that Sauron had a physical body when the ring was destroyed, so the eye can't really be a manifestation of the dastardly villain. But hey, this is what taking artistic license looks like. And you can't argue that it lacked impact or presence. Still, to this day, this is how most people will, pardon the pun, envision Sauron. Like one giant eyeball gazing down on you. But we're not done with Sauron just yet. When you mention his name, the first thing that comes to mind is Lord of the Rings. He's the ultimate bad guy. The great darkness that Frodo and his friends need to overcome. Yet, most people forget something. He's only the second in command. He's not the big dog in the yard, as he actually reported to someone else. Think of him like the assistant to the regional manager.
To give you a reference point, I'm somewhere between a snake and a mongoose.
The real big cheese is Morgoth, but we don't see him around since he's been overtaken and lives in the void now. And if you read other stories such as the Silmarillion, you'll be able to find out more about him. Though it makes sense why the films chose to sideline Morgoth. If you're establishing Sauron as the bad guy and a legitimate threat, you don't want to discuss a villain that's bigger and badder than him. This was Sauron's time to shine, not Morgoth's. But just keep in mind that he did exist in this universe. Of course, we need to talk about the Hobbits. They're such a huge part of Lord of the Rings, and things just wouldn't be the same without them, especially their big, hairy feet. Well, about that. In the books, their feet are described as having tough leathery soles and being clad in a thick curling hair, much like the hair of their heads. Do you notice what's missing here? There's no mention of them having big feet at all. Much like ordinary people, maybe some of them wore size 13 shoes, while others comfortably slid into a size 6.
What do you know about it? Nothing.
But the addition of big feet was done purely for the movies. Though Sean Astin wasn't a big fan of the prosthetics since they took so long to apply and most of the scenes didn't even require him to show his feet. And we can't let those sneaky hobbitses get away just yet, because there's one more point we need to discuss. In the films, they're portrayed as peaceful and rather laid back, like hippies at the original Woodstock. They look afraid of combat and would rather hide behind the other heroes who are better trained in war games. But the hobbits weren't all about peace, love, and second breakfasts. They knew how to throw down when necessary. This is made crystal clear in the Return of the King's novel and a particular scene that didn't make the movie. When the hobbits returned home, they discovered that humans had taken over and turned their people into servants. Frodo, Sam, Merry, and Pippin were having none of it, so they got their people to rise up and take on their enemies. And they did just that. As 100 humans tried to take the Shire, the hobbits slaughtered 70 of them, mostly using axes. So the next time you think they're gonna be walkovers, well, walk on home, boy, because they make the Punisher look like a choir boy. While the hobbits weren't afraid to throw hands, the elves were a bit of a strange bunch. They were involved in all this nonsense from the get-go, but at some point they said, nah, not our problem, fam, you're on your own. So that's why when they showed up at Helm's Deep, the audience popped louder than when CM Punk debuted in AEW. The elves finally found their conscience and were ready to fight alongside everyone else.
We come to honor that allegiance.
Hooray! But this is far from what happened in the source material. You see, the elves never rocked up at Helm's Deep in the book. They were the epitome of SEP. In other words, someone else's problem. They weren't about to be dragged into other people's affairs, choosing to mind their own business. Look, it's the safest way to live life, but what about the standing for something or falling for everything motto? Now let's end off on a fun note here. For years, fans have debated the logic of the Fellowship of the Ring. Why would the gang go on foot to Mordor if they had eagles that swooped in to save Frodo and Sam after they destroyed the ring? Surely flying on Air Eagle would be a lot quicker and safer than traversing all the dangerous lands and foes they encountered. Now, the most obvious answer is that it would make Lord of the Rings a whole lot shorter and remove the adventure element from the story. But it's actually an inaccurate theory, and there's some sound logic of why the Fellowship didn't use the eagles, namely that the foes would have seen them coming a mile away. They would have been able to rally together and capture the heroes before they were able to get rid of the ring. So the eagles might have been quicker, but they'd also destroy the element of surprise, leaving Frodo and his friends like sitting ducks. If they were able to teleport, now that's another story, and a different genre too. If you're in the mood to bust some more myths, then check out our video that explores the fake facts about Harry Potter that people still believe to be true. And while you're at it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching and stay awesome.